Hello, dear students. Welcome to another lecture on History of English Literature, where I try to make this subject a little bit interesting so that the old saying that it is boring but scoring goes away. I do not know how far I succeed, but what cannot be cured must be endured. So, therefore, let us begin without further ado and let us talk today about a very interesting topic, that is the Victorian novels and novelists. Now, the Victorian period is a period of true wonders. Okay, let me give you a very little background so that you can locate that what are the problems that these people were facing, what are the problems that these people were dealing with, and why are they writing like this. Why are they talking about these issues and these issues specifically? Before I address that, let me talk a little bit about the background of the period. The Victorian period runs from around 1830s till the late 1890s, early 1900. Okay, so these around these 70 years. Now, what happens in this period is very, very significant. That is, for the first time, you have your industrial revolution, the Great Trade Fair of 1851, the Chartist movement, which basically gave us the trade unions, and many such divergent events were found, formulated, and dealt with during this period. Number one. Number two is that there was a significant marked rise of the factories and mills in this period, and this gave a rise to a mass migration from southern England to northern England. Southern England was primarily agrarian, it was primarily rural. From there, we have a marked shift to the cities like Manchester, London, and other places where the industries were booming. There was a booming surge in the mills, cotton mills, and other forms of mills. So these people were coming to the cities and towns and populating them. Now, as you can already understand, that the city also has a limit of intake of people. Now, if the city moves beyond its capacity of intake, what happens? The city creates slums. And whenever we talk about slums, we always think about unsanitary condition of living, people being cooped up. And the factory conditions were not that good either because there were no labor laws, there were no proper hours, there was no age bar. Little children were put in the factories, and more often than not, they would undergo accidents, they would lose a limb or even their life, and there was no security, there was no insurance. So their life had literally no value. Imagine I go to a mill today, my hand gets stuck in the machine, my hand gets amputated. I cannot work for the rest of my life. If I complain, there are 10,000 more waiting behind me to get a job at as nominal a price that I was getting, or even for a greater nominal price. So imagine if I am working for 2 rupees per day, the mill owner can find a guy working for 1 rupees 90 paisa the next day. Why would he bother after me? Why would he bother over me? That is the question. These were the issues that were rampant during the Victorian age, at least in the early parts. Later, the Chartist movement brought the trade unions, there were several laws, there was the Peterloo massacre, and so on and so forth. A lot of things happened in this segment. Also, during the Victorian period, we see a marked rise of capitalism in England. The commodities, the luxuries, they become commodities in capitalism. And therefore, this rise of a new kind of rich, the mill owners, gave rise to a lot of change in the taste. Number one. Secondly, the Victorian morality also markedly influenced by this change in the pace and the taste of the age. Now, what happened during the Victorian period was that there were multiple tussles. One tussle was in the field of religion versus science. A certain guy called Charles Darwin suddenly came up with a theory that the Bible taught me that I as a human being, am modeled after God. God has modeled me in his own image. That is what the Bible teaches me. But Charles Darwin suddenly told me that my father or my ancestor is not God or a divine head, but a monkey or an ape. So I sometimes jokingly say that the Bible taught us that God is my father. Darwin taught me that a monkey is my father. So between this God and monkey, in all of this monkey business, the entire Victorian age suffered greatly. Some people said that the Bible is not giving me any proof that God has created me in his image. It is just stating. I am supposed to believe in the Bible because the Bible says it. At least Darwin is tracing, he is giving me some evidence. The Bible is not giving me any evidence whatsoever. Therefore, the society was divided in two parts. One was pro doubt, which doubted the Bible and the biblical teachings. One was pro faith, which said that, sorry, we are going to believe in the Bible no matter whatever this Darwin or any wind says. Win or lose, we are going to believe in the Bible. As simple as that. When the society was divided in such a situation, you see that this informed, impressed the philosophy and the poetry of the time greatly. But the novel was more concerned with the changing social scenarios of the Victorian era, where the mass migration, the city squalor, the problematics of the factories and mills became the key issues for the Victorian novelists to explore, expose, and exhaust. And therefore, in the Victorian novels, we see that there is a marked rise in the appreciation of the city life, in the assessment of the city life, and what kind of detriment the city life is causing to the people of the Victorian era. Now, let me quickly share the PDF. Ah, So, our topic for today is major Victorian novelists or major English novelists of the Victorian period. Now, let us go into these slides one by one, just like we do in our other lectures. Let's see what the Victorian period is talking about. So, the dates are 1837 to 1901. It was a time of great change and innovation in English literature, and we are exploring the lives, works, and contributions not of five major novelists, but many major novelists. Initially, I had thought about five, so the slide says that, but later I added more people. Now, for the benefit of my argument, I have divided the Victorian age or the Victorian novel in its types and their exponents. The first type that I have dealt with is the social novels or the novels which ask the Victorian questions, that is, of doubt and faith, of city versus rural areas, of progression via the mills, etc., against the agrarian society. And sometimes these are called city novels, sometimes these are called city comedies. And these novels are majorly written by Charles Dickens and William Makepeace Thackeray. The second category of novel is the industrial novels, which deals with the industrialism, the industrialization of the Victorian period, which I was talking about. And these novels are written primarily by Benjamin Disraeli and Elizabeth Gaskell. Then there are the women novelists like Charlotte Bronte, Emily Bronte, Anne Bronte, George Eliot. George Eliot sounds like a male name, but it is actually a lady. Her name was Mary Ann Evans. She wrote under the pseudonym of George Eliot. And then we have the novels of fate or determinism, which are written by Thomas Hardy. And finally, the two minor novelists I have considered. I know many people hearing their name as minor novelists would be furious with me, but they are not that popular or important as the others from the history of literature perspective, at least, from the question answer perspective, at least. So I have kept them as minor novelists. They are Wilkie Collins and Anthony Trollope. Now, I will be talking about the social novels or novelists at the beginning. So, my first novelist would be Charles Dickens. Now, let's go into Dickens's biographical details. Now, Charles Dickens, his dates are uh, 7th February 1812 to June 9th, 1870. He is considered to be one of the greatest novelists of the Victorian era for his vivid characterization, his depiction of social issues, etc. Here I have written about his major three novels, but when I'll discuss about the other novels as well. Okay, so let's talk about his major works. The first major work by Dickens is the Pickwick Papers, which came out in 1836 to 1837. This is a comedic sketch that satirizes the legal system and the societal norms of the times, and this marked Dickens's popularity. The second work was Sketches by Boz, which again is, as the name suggests, was sketches. That is not that important. The third one is Oliver Twist, which came out serially from 1837 to 1839. It focuses on the harsh realities of orphanhood and the situation of child labor in London. It highlights the mistreatment of the poor through the character of Oliver. The third is Dickens's most important novel, which is David Copperfield, which was serialized between 1849 and 1850. It is a semi autobiographical novel that explores the personal development and the impact of social class in the Victorian society. Next, we have A Tale of Two Cities, 1859. We have heard the first sentence. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. This is a historical novel which is set during the French Revolution, contrasting the chaos of Paris with the calm of London. Then we have Great Expectations, which was serialized between 1860 and 1861. It follows the growth of the orphan Pip, exploring the themes of ambition, social mobility, and the nature of true gentility. And in this text, through the characters of Pip and Magwitch, Dickens explores the London underbelly, the seedy life of London, and so on and so forth. Then we have Bleak House, which was serialized between 1852 and 1853. It criticizes the inefficiencies of the British legal system, particularly the Court of Chancery, and it explores the issues of poverty and class. Finally, we have Hard Times, which is the date is 1854. It examines the dehumanizing effects of industrialization on both workers and owners, emphasizing the importance of imagination and compassion. Huh? Extremely sorry for that important call. Let me quickly share the screen once again. Yes. Now, the common themes that appear in Dickens's novels. The first theme is social criticism. Dickens often highlighted the disparities between the rich and the poor, critiquing the social systems that perpetuated poverty and injustice. The second thing is industrialization. Many of his works reflect the negative impact of the Industrial Revolution, particularly on the working classes. The third theme is childhood and orphanhood, because Dickens frequently depicted the plight of children, often orphans, to highlight the societal neglect and the importance of nurturing the young generation. The fourth issue is the legal system and justice. Now, several of Dickens's novels criticize the inefficiencies and the injustices within the British legal system. This is not just Dickens. If you read Kafka, like The Trial by Franz Kafka, you will see that Kafka there talks about the same thing. Then we have the issue of class and nobility. Dickens explored the rigid class structures of the Victorian society, often portraying the struggles of the individuals to rise above their social status. And then we have the final theme, which is moral redemption or moral integrity. Many of his characters undergo personal growth or redemption, often highlighting the importance of compassion and moral integrity in the novels themselves. Now, what are the literary features of Dickens's novels? So as to say, what are the special features, so as to say, in Dickens's novels? The first thing that comes to mind is Dickens's vivid characterization. Dickens is known for his memorable and often exaggerated characters who embody the virtues and vices of the Victorian society. Second is the social realism. His detailed depictions of London life and its various social strata provide a realistic portrayal of the 19th century England. The third is a narrative voice. Dickens uses a very strong, marked narrative voice. Okay, he uses the omniscient narrator, which allows for a blend of humor, irony, and social commentary simultaneously while dealing with his uh, texts. Now comes the plot structure. Dickens's novels often feature intricate plots with multiple storylines, reflecting the interconnectedness of society. And finally, we come to his symbolism. Dickens frequently used symbolism to enhance his themes, such as the decaying house in Bleak House, which represents the stagnant legal system. Now, his novels were often serialized. They were published in serial forms because of the magazines in which they were published, and this leads to suspenseful character developments and a suspenseful chapter endings, and a rather strong connection with his readers for say. Now, he is celebrated because of his social criticism, vivid characters, and intricate plots. So let's have a recap. Why is Charles Dickens important if I have to say in two, three sentences? Number one, because of his social criticism. Number two, because of his vivid characterization. Number three, because of his intricate plots. Number four, because of his exploration of themes such as poverty, justice, moral redemption, etc. And all of these resonate with us even today. Therefore, Dickens remains one of the most important novelists of his times. Now, I know I am not going serially of this slide, because in this slide, somehow by mistake, I have separated the novelists. But let's come back to William Makepeace Thackeray. Thackeray's dates are 1811 to 1863, and he is best known for his satirical work like Vanity Fair. Thackeray, incidentally, was born in Calcutta back then. What are the major works? First is Vanity Fair. The dates are 1847 to 1848, his most famous novel. This novel was subtitled, very interestingly, A Novel Without a Hero. And this novel explores the lives of Becky Sharp and Amelia Sedley, and it offers a satirical portrait of early 19th century British society. The second very important work of Thackeray is Pendennis. The dates are 1848 to 1850. This is a semi autobiographical novel that follows the life of Arthur Pendennis, exploring the themes of personal development, social ambition, and the literary world. And the third important novel is The History of Henry Esmond. The date is 1852. This is a historical novel set during the reign of Queen Anne, and it focuses on the life of Henry Esmond, a soldier and writer, and it explores the complexities of honor, loyalty, and love. The final, most important text by Thackeray is The Newcomes. The dates are 1853 to 1855, and this novel examines the lives of a wealthy English family, highlighting the conflicts between the old and the new money and the consequences of ambition. That is, the old gentry and the new mill owners. The final novel, I'm sorry, The Newcomes is not the final novel. The final novel, I suddenly remembered this, is The Virginians. The date is 1857 to 1859. This is a sequel to Henry Esmond, and this novel follows the fortunes of Esmond family during the American Revolution, exploring the themes like loyalty, honor, and colonialism. I remembered Henry Esmond, and therefore, as a consequence, I remembered this. Extremely sorry for the confusion. Now, let us go into the themes of Mr. Thackeray. Now, Thackeray is renowned for his sharp and often cynical social commentary, particularly on the hypocrisies and vanities of the upper classes. His another major theme is morality and virtue. His works often explore the tension between appearances and reality, questioning the true nature of virtue and morality in a superficial society. If the society is superficial in itself, can virtue and morality exist? This is a perennial question that many people have asked. The third major issue with Thackeray is of ambition and social climbing, because Thackeray frequently depicted the lengths to which people would go to achieve wealth, status, and recognition, often highlighting the emptiness of these pursuits. The fourth issue is of colonialism and British identity. In novels like The Virginians, Thackeray delves into the complexities of British colonialism, exploring the effects of both the colonizers and the colonized. And then we have the final theme, which is realism. Unlike some of his contemporaries, Thackeray preferred a more realistic approach to fiction, and he avoided idealizing his heroes, and he kept on focusing on the flaws and follies of ordinary people. Now, what are the features of William Makepeace Thackeray? Let's look into them. The first literary feature is his narrative style. Thackeray often used a very first person and omniscient narrative voice, that is I, the first person omniscient narrative voice, allowing for direct commentary and conversational tone that engages the reader products. Okay, the second issue is the characterization. His characters are typically complex and multidimensional. He reflects the ambiguity of human nature through his characters. He avoided the clear-cut heroes and villains common in Victorian fiction. That is, there is a gray zone in Thackeray's characterization. It's not all black and white. Now, Thackeray uses a satirical tone in his texts, and he uses irony, humor, and satire, and this becomes a definitive feature of his works. And these are often employed to critique the social norms and the pretensions of the pursuit of wealth. Now, intertextuality also becomes a major issue in Thackeray's novels. He frequently referenced to other literary texts, he referenced other historical events, and he also referenced the contemporary culture in his writing. And these added layers of meanings, and this enhanced the realism of his stories. And then we have a moral ambiguity in Thackeray's characters, because they often face moral dilemmas. And Thackeray refuses to provide any form of clear resolution to those moral dilemmas. And therefore, the reader is left with the ethical choices and moral dilemmas. The reader is left to grapple with all of those. All right. So let's recap Thackeray a little bit. So his novels are notable for number one, their keen social observation, his satirical wit, his exploration of moral ambiguities of the Victorian society. Number four is that his realistic portrayal of human nature and society. And number five is his unique narrative style. And these have made Thackeray a keen observer of the human condition. কালকে বসি চাপে আছে। Now, we come to, so these were the social novelists, so as to say. Now we come to the industrial novelists. Or what was the order? Wait, let me check. 1 second, my dearies. Let me just check. Industrial novelists. Disraeli. I hope if we go about the Victorian novelists in this fashion, this gives you a better understanding of the Victorian novels, so as to say. I hope so. What do you think? Please tell me if this is making sense at all. Because I am trying. I don't know if this is making sense or not. But I don't know any other way to go about it. So if there are any suggestions, I'll be very happy to take those suggestions. So let's read Benjamin Disraeli. His dates are 1804 to 1881. He was born on December 21st in London, England. He was not just a novelist but also the British Prime Minister. And he is known for his political novels that blend fiction with his own political ideas. So, what are his major novels? Let's look at them. The first one is Vivian Grey, which was published in 1826. This was his first novel, and it presents a satirical portrait of the political and social life of early 19th century England through the experiences of the ambiguous character of Vivian Grey. The second novel of Disraeli is The Young Duke, which was published in 1831. And this novel follows the life of a young aristocrat who is focusing on his coming of age and the moral challenges that he faces in a society which is marked by social and political conflicts. The third important novel of Disraeli is Coningsby. Coningsby was published in 1844. This is a political novel that explores the life of the young aristocrat Sidonia and his experiences in the political world. And this reflects Disraeli's own political ideologies and his views on reform and the role of the aristocracy itself. The fourth novel is very, very important. This is considered to be Disraeli's greatest novel. This is called Sybil. Okay. Sybil or the Two Nations. This was published in 1845. This novel addresses the stark divisions between the wealthy and the impoverished in the Victorian England. It is a social and political critique of the era's class inequalities. The next novel is Tancred or the New Crusade. It was published in 1847, and this novel combines a critique of the English society with a narrative of the Eastern Quest, focusing on the themes of religious and political reform. The next novel, which is very important, is Lothair. This was published in 1870. This is a political and social novel exploring the complexities of religion, politics, and social reform through the experiences of its protagonist, whose name is Lothair. Okay. So now let's go on to Mr. Disraeli's themes. You might think that, sir, you have given us three names and you are taking 10 names. How will we know that this or that and that or this? The technique is simple. You see, when I taught the romantic novelists or the romantic essayists, somebody called me up and said that, sir, you taught us what was written on the screen itself. You did not give us anything other than what was written in the screen. So this time I thought, okay, fine. I'll give you a lot which is not written on the screen, and I will teach you all of that. And if you have to find that out, you will have to go to your history of English literature book, whichever book you are following, and you will have to read it once. So this is fun as well because now you will be listening to this lecture and soon you will be going to the books and reading them. And the best part is that this lecture that I am now recording or I am now giving live has got nothing to do with my own book as well. When I was writing my book, I took down notes, very small notes, and this is from those notes. I take notes in a very different fashion and I write in a very different fashion. So there is a rift between what I take down and what I write. Chalo, let's continue. What are the themes? First theme, social reform and political reform. Disraeli's novels often address the need for social and political reform. His novels reflect his own views as a politician. That is, Disraeli often critiques the inequalities of the Victorian society and he advocates for changes to improve conditions for the poor of the contemporary society. The second is class and social hierarchy. His works frequently explore the class structures of Victorian England and he highlights the tensions between the aristocracy and the working classes and he keeps on questioning the moral and social implications of this hierarchy. Third major issue is the national identity and imperialism. Disraeli's novels often reflect his keen interest in British imperialism and the national identity, exploring the role of Britain in global politics and cultural implications of the empire itself. The next issue is of religion and morality. The interplay between religion and morality is a recurring theme in Disraeli's works because he examines the role of faith in personal and political life and its impact on social values as well. Next, obviously, comes the political ideologies because he is, at the end of the day, he's a politician himself. You can't expect him to be apolitical. So his novels often include discussions of political ideology, reflecting his own conservative views and his belief in the importance of a strong, reform minded aristocracy. So, what are his features? Number one is satirical style. Particularly in his early novels, he critiques the social and political landscapes of his times with wit and irony. Second is his political insights. That is, his works provide valuable insights into the political climate of the contemporary world, and he often incorporates his own political views and experiences in the narratives. Number three is his characterization. His characters are often very complex and reflective of the socio-political issues of the time. They are used to explore and critique the various aspects of the society. Number four is his social critique. His novels frequently include detailed critiques of the Victorian society using narrative to address issues such as class inequality, political corruption, and the necessity of reform. Finally, fifth is his blend of fiction and politics. That is, he often creates political commentary with a fictional narrative, making the best of both. So let's take a summary. Let's have a summary of what Mr. Disraeli is talking about. I'm sorry, I have already turned the Gaskell page, but let's finally sum up Disraeli. That is, Disraeli's novels. They deal with why is Disraeli famous. If I am asked, our answer will be number one, that he offers a unique perspective on 19th century British society. Number two, he has a blend of literary fiction with political and social commentary. Number three is that his exploration of themes include social reform, class structure, national identity. There is a satirical style, there is a political insight, and these make his novels very, very famous. Okay. Now we come to the other exponent of the industrial and political novel, and her name is Mrs. Elizabeth Cleghorn Gaskell. Why is Elizabeth Gaskell famous? Elizabeth Gaskell was born in 1810. She left this world in 1865, and she was a novelist and a short story writer. She was the wife of a Unitarian minister, and therefore she saw the social injustices and inequalities firsthand, and her novels are informed with the realities of the times, especially Mrs. Gaskell's novels portray the struggles of women and the working classes. What are her major works? Let's deal with those. The first is Mary Barton, which was published in 1848. This is Gaskell's debut novel, and it addresses the plight of the working classes in Manchester during the Industrial Revolution. The novel centers on the character of Mary Barton, who grapples with the issues of poverty, class conflict, and personal loss. Here, she talks a great deal about the industrial laws, the necessity of working hours, and all. And this novel directly references to the Peterloo massacre and the rise of the trade unions. Next important novel is Ruth, 1853. This follows the life of Ruth Hilton, a young woman who becomes an unwed mother and faces social ostracism. And Gaskell examines the themes of redemption, societal judgment, and struggles of women. I don't know what has happened to my tongue today. I cannot make a distinction between S and SH. I don't know why. The third important novel is North and South, 1854 to 1855. These are the dates. This is a social novel set against the backdrop of the industrial north of England and the genteel south. It explores class conflict, industrialization, and the emerging tensions between the mill owners and the workers through the story of Margaret Hill and John Thornton. Sylvia's Love is the next one, which came out in 1863. This is set in a fishing village of Yorkshire. This novel deals with themes of love, loyalty, and social change. It highlights the effects of the Napoleonic Wars on small communities and the personal struggles of the protagonist, Sylvia. Next novel is Wives and Daughters, which came out in 1865. This is finally Gaskell's final novel. Gaskell's final novel, left unfinished at her death, focuses on the life of Molly Gibson, a young woman navigating issues of family, class, and personal development. And this novel explores the themes of social mobility and domestic life. The common themes of Mrs. Gaskell are class and social change is the number one. One second. So her novels frequently address the disparities between different social classes and the impacts of industrialization on society. She examines the struggles of the working class and the tensions between the industrial and the agrarian economies. Gender and social expectations is the next important issue. Her works often explore the limitations placed on women by the society itself, And she highlights issues such as female agency, morality, and the consequences of societal judgment. Social reform is another major issue in Gaskell's novels. She is known for her social reformist stance, using her novels to advocate for the improvement of conditions for the poor and working classes and to critique the inequalities of the Victorian society. That has been Mrs. Gaskell's idea. And then we come to the moral and ethical questions, where her novels very frequently engage with moral dilemmas and ethical questions, particularly regarding the personal conduct and the social responsibilities of the individuals. And finally, we come to family and domestic life, which is a major theme. Gaskell's exploration of family dynamics and domestic life reflects her interest in the personal and societal implications of familial relationships and gender roles. Now, what are the literary features of Mrs. Gaskell's novels? Number one is realism and social commentary. That is, her novels are notable for their realistic portrayal of social issues and detailed depiction of contemporary life. She combines narrative with social critique, presenting a vivid picture of the Victorian society. Her characterization is also very significant because her characters are often very well rounded and complex, reflecting the diversity of Victorian social classes and the moral ambiguities of their situations. She uses omniscient narrator to provide insights into the characters' thoughts, minds, and social conditions, allowing for a very comprehensive exploration of themes and issues. And she uses a very detailed setting. The settings of her novels are very meticulously described, often reflecting the social and economic conditions of the time, and the industrial north of England in particular plays a significant role in her portrayal of class conflict and social change. Now, social realism is a major issue in Gaskell's novels. Her attention to detail in portraying the lives of different social strata, including the working class and the gentry, contributes to the realism of her novels and their social critique. So, let's quickly sum up Mrs. Gaskell. Why is she important? She is important because her novels are distinguished by their rich commentary, intricate characterization, realistic depiction of Victorian life. What does she focus on? Class issues, gender roles, social reforms, which reflect her commitment to addressing the pressing social concerns of her times. And what are her special features? That is, she has insightful narratives, detailed portrayals of everyday life, and therefore she is a very significant figure in English literature because she offers a powerful critique of the societal structures of the 19th century. Is this clear, my friends? I hope I am making some sense. Now, you see, Victorian literature is very, very varied, and it is very, especially the Victorian novel, that is very varied. And therefore, I am planning to have this lecture in two parts. Today, I think I will conclude with Thomas Hardy, whose novels are deterministic or fate related. And in the other lecture, I will talk about the women novelists and the minor novelists. Okay, because that is also a very significant chunk. If I conclude all of this in one lecture, then this lecture becomes very, very cumbersome and it becomes burdened with a lot of data. Here, there is no analysis or exploration, here, there is just data and data. So, what are Hardy's dates? He was born in Dorset, England, on June 2, the 2nd of June in 1840, and passed away on January 11th, 1928. His works are known for their tragic characters and exploration of rural society. There is a sort of deterministic, melioristic feature in Hardy's writing, and therefore I have kept him separate from all the other novelists. Let's deal with Hardy. Now, Hardy has written a lot of novels, and I have had the good or bad fortune of teaching many of Hardy's novels throughout my career. So let's see. Number one, major works. Chalo. Tess of D'Urbervilles, 1891. It is one of his most famous novels. It tells the tragic story of Tess, a young woman of lower social standing who faces harsh societal judgments and personal misfortune. And the novel explores themes of innocence, fate, and social injustice. Second, Far from the Madding Crowd, 1874. This focuses on the life of Bathsheba Everdeen, an independent and headstrong woman, and her relationships with three very different suitors. It examines the themes of love, social class, and personal ambition. Third, Jude the Obscure, 1895. Hardy's final novel. It follows the life of Jude Foley, an ambitious stonemason who seeks a better life through education and marriage but faces numerous personal and societal obstacles. The novel critiques the social institutions and explores the themes of class, education, and marital expectations. Fourth, The Mayor of Castlereagh, 1886. This tells the story of Michael Henchard, a man whose rise and fall from wealth and power are marked by personal flaws and moral failings. In the opening chapter, he sells his wife to another person being drunk, and then in the subsequent chapters, he becomes the mayor of Custardbridge. He loses the mayoralty to Donald Farfrae. His daughter and wife come back. A lot of things happen. It explores the themes of fate, redemption, and the consequences of personal actions. Next, Under the Green Boot Tree, 1872, a pastoral novel set in the fictional village of Mellstock. It centers on the life of a young schoolmistress and the local community's reactions to changes brought by modernization. The novel reflects Hardy's interest in rural life and societal changes. Now, let's go to the themes. What are the common themes? Fate and determinism. Hardy's novels frequently explore the idea of fate and the ways in which individuals' lives are shaped by the forces beyond their control. Chance and coincidence becomes a very common theme. Characters often struggle against seemingly inevitable outcomes, reflecting Hardy's pessimistic view of human agency. But recently, critics are thinking of it as melioristic. That is, the world is bad outside, but man, with his capacity, can aim for something better. That is called meliorism. Number two is social critique. That is, Hardy critiques the societal structures and the institutions of his times, including class, marriage, and religion. His works often highlight the injustices and limitations imposed by society on individuals, particularly women. Number three is nature and environment. The natural world plays a significant role in Hardy's novels, often reflecting the emotional states of his characters and serving as a backdrop of their struggles. Hardy's portrayal of rural settings underscores the conflict between human desires and indifferent forces of nature. Nature is nonchalant, the universe is nonchalant in Hardy's world. Fourth is class and social mobility. Hardy examines the rigid class structures of Victorian England and the difficulties faced by the individuals seeking to improve their social status. His characters often grapple with the constraints imposed by their social position and the impact of class on their lives. Fifth is isolation and alienation. Many of Hardy's characters experience profound isolation and alienation, both emotionally and socially, and this theme underscores their struggles to find meaning and connection in a society that often marginalizes and misunderstands them. Now, we come to the literary features of Hardy. Number one is regionalism. Hardy's novels are set in the fictional county of Wessex, a region that reflects his rural life in the southern England, the southwestern England to be very accurate. His detailed descriptions of the landscapes and the local customs contribute to the sense of place in his work. The second is the psychological depth. His characters are portrayed with psychological complexity, reflecting their internal conflicts and the emotional struggles that they go through, and this depth adds to the realism and tragic dimensions of his stories. The third is the tragic tone. Many of his novels have a tragic tone with characters facing harsh realities and inevitable suffering. His writing often explores the tragic consequences of human desires and societal constraints. Number four is symbolism. His novels employ symbolism extensively, using the natural environment and other elements to represent broader themes and ideas. The landscapes and settings in his novels often symbolize the emotional and thematic aspects of the story. Next is realism and naturalism. That is, Hardy's novels are characterized by the commitment to realism and to naturalism, depicting the harsh realities of life with a focus on detail and on accuracy. And his novels often have a deterministic view of human existence, shaped by the external forces and natural laws. Now we come to a summary of Hardy's works. If we have to talk about Hardy in two, three sentences, what will be the summary? Number one is that his novels are notable for their exploration of fate, social critique, and intricate interplay between individuals and their environments. Next is novels have a detailed depiction of rural life with a focus on the limitations imposed by society and the forces of nature. And all of this creates a very powerful narrative. So, third point is that there is a commitment in Hardy to a psychological depth and to realism, and these make his works the most significant contributions to English literature, and they continue to resonate with us even today. So, as I had promised, that I shall not pester you with all the novels and novelists today. I have deliberately left out the women novelists and the minor novelists for the second class because the women novelists is a major chunk. It will take some time. And since we have just two minor novelists, they can be added with that. Okay. So we will have a second class on Victorian novelists. This is lecture 1, that will be lecture 2, and we will complete. Then from Victorian age, we will have the essays, which will take another lecture, and that's it for Victorian prose. All right. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, put them in the comment section. I'll be very happy to answer. See you soon and happy reading.